Shares of Rocket Lab jumped over 10% on Tuesday morning on news that the company had opened up a bunch of potential new contracts, $47 billion of potential opportunities. That was kind of the headline number that came out. But what's the real story behind that? It's not quite that big of an opportunity, but the announcement that came out after the market closed on Monday does open up potential growth opportunities for the company. I'm going to dig through exactly what that means for the company's stock long term. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. Let's look at the announcement so we can kind of dig through exactly what we learned yesterday. The headline, I think, is what is a little bit confusing for people. Rocket Lab on-ramped to multi-billion-dollar US and UK defense contracts to expand hypersonic technology development with Haste. Haste is, of course, the rocket platform. We'll go through that in just a second. So give an idea what this may involve. But what exactly does on-ramped to multi-billion-dollar defense contracts means? Well, we get some of the information here. The U.S. Air Force, Rocket Lab has been selected by the U.S. Air Force to participate in its enterprise-wide agile acquisition contract. That's where the big number comes from. $46 billion is allocated between 2021 and 2023 for this indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. What exactly is this bucket of money that the U.S. Air Force gets to spend? Well, the goal of the program is to be able to acquire and process and deliver innovative solutions more rapidly than you would through the normal acquisition process. The scope of work here is for R&D, science and technology, testing and evaluation, prototyping and experimentation, systems development, integration and modernization, weapon design, a whole bunch of other things. But basically, this gives the U.S. Air Force a little bit of flexibility in signing contracts with innovative new companies like Rocket Lab. Now, as it says here, the program has a contracting period through 2031 and is designed to be broad in scope, flexible in funding, and agile for maximum use to enable the Air Force to quickly procure services and technologies from various domains. I'll expand on that in a little bit, but let's go through this $1.3 billion number from the UK. Sort of a similar system. This is part of the Hypersonic Technology and Capability Development Framework. So we're using a lot of acronyms here. $1.3 billion framework to rapidly develop advanced hypersonic capabilities for the United Kingdom. So what this basically does is allows Rocket Lab to bid for contracts and tasks and task orders served by its Haste launch vehicle, as well as any other engineering design and launch services. So this is about opening up contract opportunities for the Haste launch vehicle. Doesn't mean that they've won contracts yet. I want to make that clear. The company's backlog is not going to grow just because of this announcement, but it does mean that the company has potentially more opportunities to win contracts. So what is Haste? Electron is really the big product for Rocket Lab right now. The other thing that they're working on is a medium launch vehicle called Neutron. Kind of in between is Haste. This is the suborbital testbed launch vehicle derived. So this is derived from the Electron rocket and provides reliable high cadence flight test opportunities needed to advance hypersonic and suborbital system technology development. That's what kind of the bucket for both of these contracts is under, is the hypersonic and suborbital system. So there can be different mission profiles for the Haste rocket. They just show a few examples here. And that flexibility is what is going to allow them to potentially win more contracts. Again, we're not going to see anywhere near $47 billion worth of contracts coming to Rocket Lab, but this could be hundreds of millions, even potentially a couple of $1 billion worth of potential revenue as these projects and missions are bid out. So that's really the idea here, is to expand the addressable market for Rocket Lab. And that's ultimately what I think this does. So this isn't necessarily a phenomenal buy sign. That's why I think what we've seen today in trading is there was a big pop in the stock early in the day in trading, and then that's really faded off. And that makes sense because there wasn't a multi-billion-dollar contract signed. It just sort of opens the pathway to that. So let's take a step back and look at Rocket Lab stock and what this potentially means for the company's valuation. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for stocks to buy right now. Now, I do want to start with the company's market cap, $8.7 billion as I'm recording today. The enterprise value is right around the same. And one of the things that we've seen from Rocket Lab as the company has expanded, increased the number of launches that it does each year, is we have seen those gross margins improve. So it's gone from negative gross margin as recently as 2021 to pretty solid gross margin of $116 million in the most recent year. Now, that is not overcoming the total operating expenses. This is R&D is in blue, $174 million in R&D expenses last year. And in black, or the dark gray, you see $132 million worth of SG&A expenses. So this is really the challenge: is how in the world do you value a company that is losing money? Right now, Rocket Lab is generating negative net income and also negative free cash flow. Net income is in the dark gray column that you see here, negative $190 million over the past year. Free cash flow is a little bit better, $116 million. And you can see that those numbers are moving in the right direction. So everything is heading in the right direction for Rocket Lab. We're starting to open up more contracts. Once they get their next rocket, they're expanding the number of flights from this Electron rocket. The Haste suborbital rocket obviously has now a larger potential addressable market. And then the next step is going to be getting Neutron out the door and start generating significant revenue from that rocket. But you add all of these things together, and there's a lot of potential with this company, especially as demand for new constellations of satellites grow. And I think this is one of those things where we're only going to see growth of these kind of technologies in the future. So that does improve the company's addressable market, but again, not profitable. Rocket Lab splits its business into two reported segments: launch services and space systems. And this is ultimately what I want to see growing. Now, one of the challenges looking at their backlog, which is what this is in the dark gray, is the launch system, or is the launch services, and blue is the space systems. But you're seeing that backlog is not growing a whole lot, and they have compressed the amount of time from a contract being signed to actually generating that revenue or putting a satellite into space, for example. So maybe some of that isn't going to show up in their backlog, but I would like to see backlog of over $1 billion for a company that's trading with an $8.7 billion market cap and is currently losing money. There's not a whole lot of visibility for the company and for investors. And I think that's what's just fundamentally challenging right now. This is a business that's going to be kind of a one-off. You got to win each contract time after time after time, and there's more and more competition. So does demand for these services expand as quickly as capacity or as supply? And that's really the fundamental question. Are they going to be able to generate enough profit? Now, this is one of those companies that I have on my watch list, but I don't have a great feel for what their margins are going to be in the future. Are they going to have any sort of pricing power? Are they going to be able to be putting rockets into space almost on a daily basis 5, maybe 10 years from now? Is that going to be potentially 5, 10, $15 billion worth of revenue? All that is definitely possible, but it's also possible that the company continues to lose money, that there is a cap on demand for these services. So while this was huge news today and it opens up a whole bunch of addressable market, I don't think this is the kind of buy signal that I'm looking for Rocket Lab. I do want to see a little bit more progress on profitability, on getting to operating profit, on being sustainable from a cash flow standpoint. Because once they do that, then that gives them much more flexibility to grow and expand the business long term. And it would really show that the demand for these services is going to outstrip supply, at least for the foreseeable future, or given that there's only a couple of suppliers, really SpaceX and Rocket Lab are the two main suppliers, at least in the US, for these kinds of services. But definitely worth noting. Got a little bit of a pop out of the stock today, but faded because maybe this isn't quite as big a deal as the headline made it seem. Well, let me know what you think about Rocket Lab stock today. Anything you want to add from what I had to say, leave those comments in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Asymmetric Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.